Prior to this module, the only surface I really embraced was the computer monitor. As I work with a digital camera, the only place I ever saw my work was on a screen, either in Lightroom or shared on social media. I never printed my work or presented it in any other format. It seemed to me that this was entirely normal and the contemporary way of doing photography. This module has brought home to me the value of presenting images on other surfaces. On reflection, I had subconsciously disconnected my practice from the familiar form of photography which finds expression on gallery walls. This is not the only way to view photography, but it is a powerful way to do so. The gallery carries with it a validation, a stamp of approval that says this work should be looked at. By not printing and displaying my work, I was limiting who could see it. I was denying myself possible audiences. I enjoy seeing shows by respected photographers, but they only gained that respect by putting their work out there, on the wall, and building their reputations. No doubt they received many refusals and put-downs, but they persisted and got their work in front of audiences. I realized that the development and growth of my practice requires that I engage in new discourses with new audiences, and that means I must present my work in new ways and places. So I have arranged an exhibition of my work in my hometown. The work will be displayed in the furniture department of my local department store as part of Landings 2019. This venue was not my first choice, but I'm grateful to the store owners for the opportunity, and I'm excited at the prospect of my work being seen by a broad cross-section of people. I recently spent an evening printing and framing my work. This was revelatory to me. There was a host of new decisions to be made: choice of frame, size, mounts, and methods of attaching to the wall. Then the technicalities of printing from Lightroom, holding up new prints to check the quality, finding some images just could not print adequately, cropping to print accurately to A4 size. This was new, exciting, and I felt like I'd opened up a whole new area of creativity. I have used the same collection of images to create a book. Once again, I encountered a whole new set of considerations: book size, image positioning, and sequence. The book is ordered, and I look forward to the sensation of thumbing through a book of my own work. I also look forward to being able to hand it to people for them to look at the work that I made. These changes in the surfaces I've employed are real growth for me. I feel greater confidence in putting my work in front of people, in different formats and on different surfaces. The strategies I apply to my work have also changed. Since the last submissions, I have struggled with my project. I remain absolutely committed to the relevance of the climate crisis, but I was finding it increasingly difficult to progress the project. I knew this was a big and important subject, and it must be possible to develop the project. Plainly, the problem was me, not the subject matter. I consulted with my tutor, and the problem became clear. I was interpreting the subject matter in a very narrow way. I was trying to inject a visual sense of foreboding signified by oppressive skies into every picture. This is obviously very limiting and requires the submission to a very prescribed style of picture. As I wasn't ready to accept that, and the oppressive style is not my native picture-making aesthetic, I was suffocating my creativity very severely. I have abandoned the stylized foreboding approach and started making images in a way that seems more native to me. This has substantially changed the look of the portfolio and has also changed the way I look at the pictures. I'm no longer concentrating on creating the style. I'm much more engaged with the content. This is a positive step in every way. The work I produce is more varied and interesting, both in my own opinion and in the views expressed by peers and tutors. It has been stimulating to look at the work of other practitioners who are also making work that looks at the climate crisis. I have attended exhibitions by Josh Hayner at Photo London and by Philippe Chancel in Arles. Both were thoughtful exhibitions with photography of a very high standard. Chancel's show, Data Zone, was quite stunning, and the ambitious way the work was presented was truly inspirational. But there is an aspect to this sort of work that does trouble me. These shows are created from pictures made all over the world. The introductory texts often describe the photographer as travelling the world to make this work. In some ways, I envy these photographers, as I too love to travel. But there seems to be an insensitivity there too. Many people, especially environmentalists, see flying and long-distance travel as especially damaging. Empirically, eating red meat and powering our home with electricity from conventional sources are worse sources of emission, but the globe-trotting photographer trope does carry with it the baggage of double standards. The suggestion is that the photographer has travelled to make these pictures about the Anthropocene, so you don't need to. My response to this perception is to apply a strict ethical constraint to my project. It will only include pictures I have made in the southeast of England, where I live. The pictures are mostly taken at the coast. Certainly in my area, this is the environment that will see the greatest impact from the climate crisis. I see the pictures as a meditation on the coast, which has always changed but will now change at a dramatic pace. The pictures are also a witness to how things are. As sea level rise takes its toll, these pictures will be an unrepeatable record of how these places looked in 2019. So my pictures will form an archive. In 30, 40 or 50 years' time, the custodians of my work will be able to show my work as evidence that some people did acknowledge the crisis and were looking forward. I do hope that, unlike Vivian Meyer, my work will find some recognition whilst I'm around to appreciate it. One way to achieve this would be to work with environmental campaigning groups, either presenting my work as part of their message or working for them to document their activities. Whilst it is fine to take photographs for one's own pleasure, as many people do, I now consider myself to be on a creative journey. This will take me to new situations, both physical and intellectual. It will lead to new interactions and new stimuli. For a photographer, those interactions will typically be between subjects, audience and self. To make the most of those creative situations, I must be open to new strategies of making work and of presenting it. It pleases me enormously that I am freeing myself from old restrictive habits and embracing a new liberated practice.